Talked about the cycle of the book of Shoftim, the book of Judges yesterday, and today we will meet our first judges. One of them we've already met, but we'll meet him as judge. Starting, V'ele hagoyim asher hiniach Adonai l'nasod b'amet Yisrael et kol asher lo yadu et kol milchamot Canaan. And so these are the nations that was described yesterday that were left as a snare, as a trap to Bnei Yisrael. So as God would test them, this next generation who did not know the wars of Canaan. They were not the generation with Yoshua. These are the following generations. So the succeeding generations of Israel might be made to experience war, but again, only those who had not known, right? And part of the idea of war here, why do you want to know war? Who wants a war? Presumably it has to do with your relationship with God in the Bible, right? If you have faith in God, then you are successful in battle, and that's sort of the test that God is giving them. So who are these people? In verse 3, these nations, Chamesh, Sarnei, Plishtim, the five principalities of Plishtim, of the Philistines, so that's down in the Gaza area, Ashkelon, Ashdod, Ekron, Aza, V'chol HaKnani, V'Tzidoni, V'Chivi, Yoshev Har HaLevanon, Mehar Bar Hermon, Ad Levo Chamar. It goes all the way up to the north of the country, to the Hermon, to Lebanon, and so there are people all over. As we mentioned moments ago, why were they there? To test Israel, to see if Bnei Israel would be obedient to the commandments of God that they received from Moses. So Israel was settled, and next to them were the Canaanites, the Hittites, the Amorite, the Perizi, the Chivi, the Yevusi. And very quickly we're told things didn't work out. We're intermarrying. We're taking their daughters to be wives, and we're giving our own daughters to their sons. And as a result of that intermingling, we are also worshiping their gods. And thus, as it continues in verse 7, and so Israel forgot God, and they sinned against God, and they worshiped the Baal and the Asherot. Baal is more of a male god, Baal, master and owner, and Asherah, more of what's understood as tree, a female goddess, if you would go and look for pictures of the idols that they have, archaeologists have found and identified. And so Israel was sold out. Are the words, right? God just sold them, didn't want them anymore, couldn't keep them anymore. He sold them to Kushan Rishatayim, and the Israelites were subject to them for 8 years. That's the first stage of the cycle we talked about yesterday. Stage number 2. Stage number 2, there's no atheist in the foxhole. Bnei Israel call out to God. Stage number 3, God sends them a champion, a judge, somebody to save them. This time, the first of the Shoftim, Otniel ben Kenaz, there's still a city in Israel, there's Yeshiva, Otniel, and this is a person who we already learned about back in the last chapters, and really in the book of Yoshua. He is the one who takes the challenge up from Kalev, and he goes and he is victorious and wins the city of Kiryat Sefer, and thus he marries Kalev, Caleb's daughter. And so appropriate as well, the great spy, his son-in-law is going to be the first shofet, the first one who's going to continue in the next stage of the conquest, if you want to put it as such, of the land of Israel. Verse 10, at Kushan Rishatayim melech Aram, al Kushan Rishatayim. And the Spirit of God descends upon him, and he judges Israel. He brings them out to battle, and he defeats Kushan Rishatayim, the king of Aram. And and Yisrael is victorious. And thus, and here's the last, that's the sort of the fourth stage. And then the fifth stage, the land is quiet for 40 years. There's no peace. It's just everything is fine. There's no attacks. And after the life of Otniel ben Kenaz. And so those are the 5 stages. We're told the stages through the life of Otniel ben Kenaz. We don't really told much more about him. We learn more about him back when he takes Kiryat Sefer, but he is the first of the Shoftim, and that is the cycle. And then the cycle continues again. Verse 12, Vayosifu b'nei Yisrael asot hara b'nei Adonai v'chazek Adonai eglon melech Moab al Yisrael Al ki asu et hara b'nei Adonai. So Bnei Yisrael, once again, they are offensive. They don't listen to God. And all the person who now takes control of them is Eglon, the king of Moab. And if we want to think back, right, there's Lavan Ha'arami, the Arameans, right? Aram is the first king, and this is Moab. Moab is a descendant of Lot. So here we have, it's all the descendants, all the things that went wrong that maybe could have gone better in the book of Breshit. Now we are starting to see the enemies that are all around us from the descendants of those people. Vayasof elav et bnei Ammon va'amalek vayelech vayach et Yisrael vayirshu et ir hatmarim. And so Eglon brought along the Ammonites. It's not a surprise. Ammon and Moab, the two children of Lot, and and Amalek, a descendant of Esav, and they go and they attack Bnei Israel and they capture the city of palms. And Bnei Israel are subject to King Eglon for 18 years, a lot of time. So it took them a while to get from stage 1 to now, verse 15, stage 2. Ehud ben Gera ben Hayimini ish iter yad yamino. So Bnei Israel, stage 2, cry out to God. Stage 3, God sends them a champion, somebody who's going to bring them salvation, Ehud ben Gera. If you look at his name, just interestingly, it's Aleph Bet Gimel. Ehud with an Aleph, Bet for Ben, Gimel for Gera. And look at some of the other letters in his name. We have a Da, we have a Hey, we have a Vav, we have a Dalet right in the word Ehud. So it's almost at the beginning of the alphabet. I don't know what to make of that, but something to think about. He is from the tribe of Binyamin. Binyamin literally means the son of my right hand. Originally, as Rachel was dying, she called her second son, the youngest of Yaakov's 12 sons, Ben Oni, the child of my affliction. And Yaakov, not wanting to have a child named the child of my affliction, not a very good name to grow up with, renames him the child of my right hand, Rachel being his right hand. But the irony of the Ben Hayimini is that he is a lefty. He's a left-handed man, and he's leading Bnei Israel in battle, but we don't know it's battle, I should say, because he's bringing a gift to Eglon to pacify him. Vayaslo Ehud cherev, and Ehud makes for himself a sword. V'la shnei peyot, and it has a two-edged dagger. Sounds like it has two sharp sides. Gomed arka, it was a gomed in length, which is understood as being a short sword. And he hides it, he places it in his right side under his cloak. And this is a big surprise because people are generally righties. And therefore your sword is put on your left side. So you can stick down your hand and grab it to go into battle. But his is on the wrong side, or presumed to be the wrong side. And thus it is hidden well. He presented the tribute to King Eglon, and Eglon was, the word bari usually means healthy. Here it doesn't mean healthy. Here it means he had a little too much for breakfast and lunch and dinner for the last many, many years, not just today. He had a little too much to eat. Just interesting. You think of his name, Eglon sounds like Egel, sounds like a cow or a calf, right? He's this big cow. People don't like to be called cows. That's what he's being called. We're describing his body type. When Ehud had finished presenting the tribute, the present, he dismissed the people who had brought the present with him, the others who had brought it. But he returned, so everybody else left, and he goes back up to near Gilgal. Interestingly, you think Gilgal, that's the first place Bnei Israel, again, we talked about yesterday, entered. That was their camp where they entered, they fought against Jericho. And so it's the first camp that Bnei Israel have when they enter into the land of Israel. So it's like Eglon, and these people are taking away the conquest of Bnei Israel. They're in Gilgal, they've taken over other places. And so the conquest that Bnei Israel had is being removed. And so Ehud goes back to talk to him, and he says, I have a secret to tell you. And so Eglon says to the rest of his servants, go out, right? Because, I want to hear what the secret, he gave me all these beautiful gifts. The Ehud ba'ilavu Yoshe baliatam kare asher lo levado v'yamar Ehud dvar Elohim li elecha v'yakam me'al hakisei. And Ehud gets close to him, and The Eglon is sitting in his cool upper chamber, and he says, "I have a message for you." Where the king rose from his seat, a sense of great respect, right? The king actually, who's not a small guy, he stands up to hear the word of God. We got to give him that. And what is Ehud's message to him? What does he have to say to him from God? Vayishlach Ehud et yad smolo vayikach et hacheref me'al yarech yamino vayitkaeha bivitno. Ehud reaches with his left hand, but they didn't see that he had the sword with him because, again, it's on the right side of his legs, and therefore it's hidden. And he draws out the dagger and he sticks it into Eglon's belly. Vayavo gam hamitzav achar halahav. The fat closed over the blade. There's so much fat and guts and gore. This is the favorite story when the 5th or 6th grade boys learn Navi. This is their favorite story. The fat crossed over the blade, and the hilt went in after the blade, and Ehud does not try to pull out the dagger. Maybe because he knows that he's been effective. Maybe he thinks if he doesn't die in the next 5 seconds, he'll die in the next 5 minutes. Or maybe he thinks that's disgusting. I'm not sticking my hand in there to take my dagger out. It's done. It's right. It's done. It's done what it has to do. And his guts and filth and grossness, his intestines are falling out of Eglon's belly. Ehud hamis derona vayaskor dlatot aliyah ba'ado vana'al. He steps out of the vestibule and he sneaks out. He shuts the doors behind him. He locks them. V'hu yatsa va'avadav ba'u. And right, so here at the same time, Ehud leaves, the king who he has just mortally wounded, and Eglon's servants go back in to see what's going on with their master. They told to leave. But they see that the doors are locked. They say he must be going to the bathroom, and that's why the doors are locked. They waited a while. And when the doors didn't open, they took the key. And what do they see? They see their large, big king has fallen to the ground. Blood is everywhere, and he is dead. During this time, while they're waiting, the Ehud, in verse 26, Nimlat ad hit mahem, Ehud ran away while they were delaying. And he passed by the Psilim, where he was before, and he escapes to Seira. And when he comes there, he sounds the ram's horn in the hills of Ephraim. That same word, vayitka, is the same shoresh of the word that's used when he sticks the knife into his belly. Vayitkaeha. He drives it into the belly. I don't know if there's a similarity between the two words. It's right, sticking into the belly and sticking the sound through the shofar, the tekiah, but the same word is used here, as I'm sure is purposeful. And he leads Bnei Israel in battle. And he says to them, "Follow me, because God has given your enemy Moab to you." They follow him down and they seize the fords by the Jordan River. And the Moabites, they let no one cross, so they sort of are surrounding the Moabites. They kill about 10,000 Moabites who were all strong and brave men, and none of them escaped. And Bnei Israel is victorious, and the land is free of trouble for 80 years. Now we're going to learn about the third shofet, only one verse about him. Shamgar ben Anat varachet plishtim sheish meot ish milmad habakar vayosha gam hu et Yisrael. We learn about Shamgar ben Anat. We know nothing more about him. He slays 600 Philistines with a bone of an ox. Sounds like, right? We're looking towards Shimshon there, it sounds like. And he too was a champion. He too was a shofet of Israel. So here we learn about these different first three shoftim. Most interesting story, certainly of Ehud. He's the son of the right, but he is a lefty. We know that historically, at certain times, lefties were considered sinister and sly and tricky. And certainly that's the image that we have here of Ehud. He tricks the Moabites, he hides his sword, but here the trickery and the sly, the sinister nature is not being used as a, I think it's not being described as something that is negative, but rather it is something that helps bring about the end of the subjugation of Moab and brings about peace and freedom for Bnei Israel. Just one last point. If you would ask classically, the chronology of this book, how many years does this book take place? So classically, the answer was that it's hundreds of years, right? We've already gone through in a short period over 120 years. We should say 120 and 26. We've already have 146 years in this book, right? 26 of subjugation between the first two, and then 120 years of peace. But the way that most understand this book is it's not one judge after another. They're judges in certain areas. Right, there's going to be attacks to Bnei Israel in the south. There are going to be attacks to the north. There are going to be attacks to the east, attacks from the west, and so these are more tribal entities that are getting into attacks. And so it's unclear as to determine the chronology of this book, how long it takes. Are some of the 40 years and the 80 years at the same time is generally more of the understanding of contemporary commentaries who attempt to look at the book of Shoftim.